Tiger fans, I apologize last week for missing last week's video. Like I had said the week before, Memorial Day was happening. I was out of town. I was actually in Detroit, and when I got back, did not have time to catch up with what was going on in Tigers baseball last week. So this video is going to be not so much of what happened, more so of what's going on. So coming into the homestand, the Tigers were facing the Guardians and the Indians. What a moron I am. The Guardians and the Twins. The Tigers had previously played them on that long road trip that they had when they had went through Cleveland, Tampa, Minnesota, and whatnot. So coming in, the Guardians had been sliding, and that series, the Tigers ended up taking 2 of 3. They had one game. Of course, the one game I go to, they get blown out 8-1, and I end up having to leave in the 7th inning. Alex Vietto, and we're just going to kind of talk on like a general consensus of the team. Like I said, this is not going to be a recap of everything that's going on. More so where they stand and just catching up. Vietto again pitched really well. Really, the whole young pitching staff. We're going to talk about this here in a minute or two. The whole pitching staff as a whole, for being as injured as they've been, has been pitching extremely well. That was just one game where it was mainly on the bullpen. Jose Ramirez, just a tank. And then the Twins came in. They had a 4-5. They had a 5-game series against them because they had a makeup game. The Tigers actually took 4 or 5 in that series. I really wish I would have went to one of the Twins game versus the second game of the Guardian series because one of the games actually in the Guardian series got rained out that Friday night when I was on my way up to Michigan. And then the Saturday game they played. So they actually technically split because they only played 2 games. That's right. And the game's going to be made up July 4th. So nonetheless, the Tigers ended up taking 7 of 9 games on that homestand. So they were leaving and going into New York only 10 games under 500. They had took 4 or 5 from the Twins, who are still in first place. You know, the Royals have been playing worse than us. The White Sox they're really kind of an abomination of what they should have been versus expectations. But they're injured and they don't play defense. They're actually, I think, a worse defensive team than we are. The Tigers really, as a whole, and it's going to be hard to believe with some of the plays they made today in New York. They've actually been playing pretty damn good defensively. Willie Castro's kind of found his footing out in left field, and he's done a decent job in center and whatnot since he's had more reps out there. You don't want to put him at shortstop. That is for frickin' sure. He can't throw a ball from short. But their defense has actually been pretty damn good. You know, now that like Daz and Hill have been out in center field, they both play a really nice brand of center field. Daz too, you know, his dad Mike was a good center fielder, and Hill, you know, we all know how good he is out there. But Daz has made some really nice plays. He had a really great play in Cleveland a couple weeks back that robbed. I don't think it would have been a homer, but it would have been for sure extra bases. But he's out there. They've been playing a really good brand of defense. Baez, for as bad as he's been, you know, he's really changed up the middle. Him and Scope have turned so many double plays in the month of May. One thing they struggled with for sure in the month of April was one of their strong points. They turned a lot of double plays in the month of May, and they've done really well together, and Torkelson's been really good at first. Jamer, though, he's been not very good at third this year. He's had a lot of balls hit right at him that he's bobbled. Airmailed throws, bobbled on the transfer, went go right through the 5-hole, not see the ball all the way into his glove, trying to throw the ball before it's even in his hand. He's had a rough year at third. So going into the New York series, New York has been extremely good this year. They're the best team in baseball, really, on record. And honestly, with the way they've played, you know, you can make a case that they're better than the Dodgers. Their pitching staff is amazingly good. They've gotten just nothing, and this series just showed you how good their pitching staff was. Garrett Cole, you know, when the Tigers got obliterated in the first game of the series, almost no hit. Garrett Cole obliterated them absolutely easy, and then their bullpen just doesn't get any easier. I mean, they just are throwing out guys like Clay Holmes. Wow, is he good? And Michael King, he's really freaking good too. Like, they have just arm after arm in that pen, and the Tigers got obliterated the first game. And then what happened? Second game of the series, Bo Brisky pitches an absolute gem. He gives up another first-inning batter home run. Surprise, surprise. It's been his MO all year. Like, he gives up a home run the first pitch of the game. to Aaron Judge, and Aaron Judge has been hitting everything. And then he like buckles down, and he's really good. And he was great. Like, you can't ask for it. He made 2 bad pitches. He made a bad pitch to Aaron Judge. He made a bad pitch to Anthony Rizzo. And the Tigers ended up losing this game, getting shut out because Luis Severino was great. And so game 3 today, Tigers took an early 2-0 lead. Javier Baez finally actually hit a frickin' ball, which is amazing. And they scored a run, and then he got driven in. And then Miguel Cabrera had a big hit in the 8th inning to make it 4-3 after the Yankees had tied it. And then they gave it up with just some really bad defense, something they haven't been really doing over the last month. Anthony Rizzo steals second. Jonathan Scope has a ball hit off his mitt that he should have had hit. He should have caught from Eric Haas. Trickles off into the outfield. They go, and Rizzo gets to third off of a stolen base. And then Willie Castro fields a ball off the hop and has a really bad throw to Eric Haas, and they end up tying it. With how good their bullpen has been, like Fulmer came in and had a bases loaded 2-out situation. Aaron Judge, he struck him out on 3 pitches. And then Gregory Soto was dominant in the 9th, but there's only so much he could do, In the 10th inning, walks get to him, and Josh Donaldson hit what I almost thought was going to be a 3-run shot, and, they win the game. And with as good as their bullpen has been, you think when it's 4-3 in the 8th inning with the arms that they've got, they're going to win that game and at least salvage one of the 3 of the series, but they don't. And this is a big difference from the Tigers of last year to this year. By this time last year, the Tigers' offense was starting to heat up, and we were starting to see more consistency. By this time last year, Jonathan Scope went off, and he carried the team. And by now, Eric Haas has appeared. And by now, Robbie Grossman had already put a couple of balls out of the park. And by now, Akil Baddoo was already a little bit more, was established as an everyday player in our lineup. Right now, it's just this lineup. They have like a game where they score 7 runs finally, but they're not even averaging 3 runs a game. You just don't know. And A.J. Hinch is trying lineup after lineup. Like Spencer Torkelson goes on a 12-game stretch where he hits 361. He moves him up a little bit in the lineup. And then like Torkelson, I think, had 1 hit the entire series of New York. And after having like an 0 for 12 coming out of Comerica Park going into New York. And it's like he can't win right now with this offense. No matter where he puts people, no matter how he puts the batting order, he just can't win. So during the homestand, and let's get into going on with the team right now, let's talk about the call-up. Cody Clemens got his call-up to the big leagues. The Tigers called him up at the back end of the Twins series. He made his debut. Coming into making his debut, Clemens was 1 for 15 in Toledo after a blazing start. He was like hitting over 300, and he was ripping the cover off the ball. But when they called him up, you could see some of his at bats. He's had a couple of walks, but you could see like he's a little chase happy for sure, and he's had a couple of good swings. Like his first big league at bat, he put a ball in the left field, he put a good swing on it, and then his second game, first swing in the at bat, he had a ball that I thought he hit a home run on, but he got just in on him, and he hit it right to the warning track. But other than that, like it's been a lot of choppers, a lot of just missing it off the barrel, pop-ups into center field, right field. So, so far in I think he's got 11 or 12 plate appearances. He still doesn't have a hit, kind of eerily similar to Spencer Torkelson, where he just couldn't square anything up. His first 12 at-bats, 15 at-bats, and people are like, oh, well, I thought this guy was supposed to be really good. And, he doesn't do anything. And it took him a while to get his first big league hit, because I don't think Torkelson got his first hit. He didn't get his first hit till that Boston series, which is the second series of the year. And I don't think he got it till the second game of that series. So Clemens makes his debut. Hinch has already sat him a couple of times, to I don't know, what would you say, clear his head, but I don't know how much you could say clearing his head when he's only got 12 at-bats. I could say one thing against lefties. You can see his left-on-left splits are not going to play in the big leagues, just from the couple of bats I've saw. I mean, it's a little premature, but when he's left on left, he doesn't look like he's really got it in the batter's box, I'll tell you that. But he made a couple of really nice plays in left field so far. He made a nice play at second base. It definitely looks like he could handle a glove at second base. Doesn't look bad at all in left field. So there's a spot for him. But I don't know how long he's going to be in the big leagues. Here's why. So ever since Riley Greene started his rehab assignment last week, I have been absolutely watching the hell out of the Mud Hens. Not only because Riley Greene there, but Austin Meadows is there. So far, Riley Greene, he's gotten a handful of hits. He's hitting close to 300. He's been there a little over a week so far. It'll be a week tomorrow. He's been there because he started last Monday there, and they've been playing Columbus all week. Austin Meadows has only collected one hit so far, but he DH'd his first game. They put him out in the outfield his second game, but he only played half the game, and then they pinch hit for him. But today, he played all 9 innings out in the outfield. So, Austin Meadows is for sure going to supplant Riley Greene to get to the big leagues first, which I think that means Cody Clemens is going to end up getting sent down. So, his time in the major leagues isn't going to be too long. And honestly, this wasn't a chance for him to be an everyday guy anyways, because he was ripping it up. He was absolutely destroying the ball in AAA. And they still made him wait an additional 20 at-bats after he had hit his 8th home run. Well, it might have been 25 at-bats after he hit his 8th home run, so that's almost another week worth of games. And it took a Robbie Grossman injury to even get him the call-up. There's really no place for him to play right now either, because you think about it, Meadows is for sure going to get called up to the big leagues before Riley Greene. I think what they want to do with Riley Greene, as much as it pains me because I just want to see this guy in Detroit already, because I want to watch him play every single day because I'm selfish and I want to see him play with Spencer Torkelson. Meadows is going to get there first. This was a guy that they expected to be close to what he was last year with 25-plus home runs. And this team has had absolutely no power. And right now, before he got that vertigo stuff, he was almost a 1-to-1 guy where he's striking out to every walk he had, which was pretty damn good. And he had the highest on-base percentage on the team. He was definitely up there in average, so they need his bat. So I think they'll probably, since Meadows is already a proven big leaguer, they'll call up Meadows sometime this week. I think he'll probably play maybe 2 more games where he plays all 9 innings down in Toledo. Then, Clemens might get a start or 2 more, and then they'll kick down Clemens. But I think by this time next week, if Austin Meadows isn't already up, I think by this time next week, if Riley Greene has 1 more week like he had this past week, where he has been playing center too, and he's looked good out there. Like I said, I've been watching these games close. I've been watching almost all of his at-bats. He's had a couple of walks. You can tell, the game speed isn't speeding up on him after being out of the league for 2 months, essentially. But he's already had a couple of walks off of lefties, too. And he had a really good at-bat against James Karinchak, who can really, really bring it. He's got a good curveball and fastball. But he's already drawn a couple of walks. He's been playing center field the entire time. The speed looks there. He had a ball where he just dribbled it off to Karinchak, and he was hustling ass down to first base to try to beat it out for an infield single, and Karinchak just fielded it, and Greene slowed down right at the bag, so he didn't go hard through it and potentially hurt something. But he was busting ass down the line. He looked great. So I think Meadows ends up getting called up. And I think if Greene has 1 more good week like he did this week, he's gonna make a push. Because if you and then you got to look at the outfield situation in Detroit. It's not like anyone has absolutely earned themselves an everyday definitive spot in any position in this lineup. Because realistically, the Tigers have had 2 hitters all year that have done anything consistently. Surprisingly, Miguel Cabrera. Miguel Cabrera this year, for some weird reason, he went from being a guy that had no bat speed and couldn't hit velocity to where this year, Miguel, he's had a bunch of 3-hit games. His power came back in a little bit of a flash mid-month last month in May, where he had that nice little stretch where he had, a couple of home runs in a 5-game span. But he had another 3-hit game. He is sitting there, and he's doing it off of good pitchers. He is not getting beat by velocity. That pitch he had today was a changeup inner third of the plate that was 2 balls with inside, and he drove it right back up the middle. So this kind of plate discipline and this kind of bat speed in his approach, he hasn't had this kind of good of swing in 3 years. So really, Miggy and Harold Castro have been the 2 best guys, with Willie sprinkled in there in little spurts. Because Willie will have a 3-hit game, he'll have a couple of 2-hit games in a row, and it'll keep his average up, and then he'll go cold for a couple of games. But it's pretty much been Hitting Harold and Miguel Cabrera have been the only guys that the Tigers can't really not have in the lineup. So with Meadows back, he's really one of the only guys that's going to be guaranteed an outfield spot. And even when Grossman comes back, like, he hasn't been hitting really all year. He has no power. He has no power whatsoever. And then he's had a couple of stretches this year where he's like been 0 for 20 a couple of times already. So he isn't guaranteed a spot either. So what I think is going to end up happening is Meadows is going to get called up back to the big leagues this week because they just need his bat. And then I think if Greene has one more good week, he's going to get called up too. And this is where it comes into decision time. Because AJ has really been trying to sprinkle the Castros in there, because they, even when Willie does go into a little bit of, a couple of games without a hit, he's still a pesky at bat. And I think what's going to end up happening is Cody Clemens is going to be for sure sent down. And I think it's going to be between Daz and Hill, who's going to get sent out for the time being. And I think as of right now, I think Daz is probably the one that's going to stay, because Daz is shown way more power so far. Like that game against the Twins when he hit a 2-run shot to end the homestand when the Tigers won 3-2. Like, he had a ball before that in his previous at bat. He had smacked 415 a little bit deeper, and then he put that ball in the same place but took a 425 over the bullpens. I think Daz right now, he's playing more than a good enough center field. I think he's got a little bit more power, and I think he's a guy that would platoon. If Greene needs a blow out of center field, you could put him out there and it's not going to hurt you. Plus, Derek Hill is an injury concern. Derek Hill really only has speed, but he really doesn't get on base consistently enough to use it. He's always trying to bunt on, and it worked for his first couple of bats, but he really hasn't been getting on at all. And he doesn't really have any kind of power. He had that one home run that dinked off of, I forget what team it was, dinked off the guy's glove and over the fence. So, he just hasn't really shown that kind of power, and I think he's going to be the odd man out. So I think the outfield's going to end up being Greene in center, Meadows in left, and then they'll platoon someone out in right between Daz, Grossman, and Willie Castro. But I think for a little bit, when Meadows first comes back, they'll be a little bit lenient about how many games they actually put him out in the outfield, because they don't want to, I don't think, put too much pressure on him right away after suffering from vertigo, because they're already, happy that he hasn't experienced the symptoms in a few weeks. Like, today he plays all 9 innings, and now they're going to be getting a bat back that they desperately need because the team can't hit. Like, they're literally one of the worst offenses since, like, the 70s. They're really bad. So I think what's going to end up happening is Meadows will DH a little bit. They'll probably give Cabrera a couple days off a week, maybe for like 2 weeks, week and a half. Cabrera will sit a couple of games and let Meadows DH, and then they'll pop Willie out in left field, and Greene will be in center, and Daz will be in right, or Grossman will be in right when Grossman comes back. And then they still have Victor Reyes. And when Victor Reyes is finally cleared to come back, that's when I think Daz gets sent out. And what they'll do in their outfield for sure will be Meadows, Greene, Reyes, Grossman. And I think that'll be the thing for now. But I think as of now, Daz will be the platoon guy with Grossman when Grossman comes back. But I think in the next week, Meadows and Greene will both be up. But Meadows for sure, because he's getting close. And Cody Clemens will be sent out. And I think Derek Hill will be sent out. So then, let's talk a little bit about some of the pitching. So Casey Mize is getting close to having a rehab start, which is great. Tyler Alexander he pitched yesterday. He's pitched twice already in Toledo, but yesterday he pitched a few innings and he looked pretty damn good, a lot better than his first start. Matt Manning had a setback. He's got bicep tendonitis, so I don't know, like maybe July. They just don't know, because he tried ramping it up and he got hurt, and he was close to getting called back up to the big leagues, and he spilled. He told AJ, like, my arm hurts. And they got bicep tendonitis. So who knows? Because now he's going to be out. He's already hasn't pitched in over a week, which means he's going to have to ramp it up again, which means he's going to have 2 to 3 more rehab starts again. So who knows? And Casey Mize, they ended up putting him on the 60-day IL because he wasn't going to be eligible to come off of it anyways. It was going to be June 14th. He's not going to be in the big leagues anyways. So with those two guys, who knows? I mean, hoping after the All-Star break, like, that they'll get him back for the last 2 months of the season, for August and September. But right now it's not looking promising. But now that we're on the topic of pitching, let's talk a little bit about how good this rotation has been. So one of the bright spots in this Tigers team so far has definitely been the young rotation. Everyone that wants to sit there and say, fire Avila, he can't build a team, this team is awful, blah, blah, blah. They're not gonna give Avila any kind of credit of being able to take a team that's lost 4/5 of their rotation. Like Eddie, and that's another thing. Erod is getting close for a rehab assignment too. He was throwing bullpens. Same with Jose Cisneros as well. They're not gonna give this guy any kind of credit for being able to lose 4 of 5 starters. Your almost complete rotation. Do you know how many other teams that lose 4 or 5 starters would have been almost 20 games under 500 by now? Go look at the Phillies. Everyone wants to talk about how Dave Dombrowski is this god, blah, blah, blah. I'm very thankful for the times Dave Dombrowski was here. He took a team in 2003 that lost 119 games, and he made them go to the World Series twice in my lifetime, and it was some of the best baseball I've got to watch in my lifetime from 06 to 15. Or 14, I should say. Very thankful for that. Very thankful for the players I got to watch. But if this was a Dave Dombrowski team, the Tigers would have 12 wins right now. Because they would have 0. They would have gone out and signed some crappy free agent. They would be asking Rick Porcello to come back. Perfect example, I forget what year it was, but the Tigers were so injured, they went out and traded for Randy Wolf from the freaking Brewers because they needed a starter so bad. They needed someone to literally fill innings because they had no depth. None whatsoever in their rotation because they were so hurt. They had to go get Randy Wolf. The Tigers farm system has been so deep in pitching depth. They've drafted so well and scouted so well for pitching depth that they have lost 4/5 of the rotation, not including that Mize was a 1-1 pick. You know, he's supposed to be the ace of the staff going forward, you know, what he's touted as, even though it's going to be hard to supplant Tarek Skubal because that kid's great. But Manning was a big pick. Erod's a big free agent signing. Michael Pineda was a sneaky good free agent signing. He was pitching well. So they've lost 4 or 5, and what have they done? Bo Brisky, yeah, he's had problems with the gopher ball, but he's gone at least 5 innings every single start he's been in the big leagues, and now he's gone 6 innings twice. And his past time out in New York, 2 of his best starts have been against what teams? The Dodgers and the Yankees. And he's done nothing but consistently perform. He's had a couple of bad starts where he's had issues with walks. But he goes out there and competes and gives you at least 5 innings every single time. He's yet to go less than 5 innings. And in today's baseball, that's huge because most guys don't go through the lineup 3 times. And he's gone into the 6th twice. Alex Vietto, he has not given up over 2 earned runs in any of his starts in the big leagues. None. Not a single time. He's going out there and giving you start after start after start after start, leaving you in the ballgame. Now, has he had a little bit of issues with walks? Yeah, for sure. But he's been able to pitch around them. He's been able to be effective. He's been great. Elvin Rodriguez. He's had flashes of brilliance, but, you know, he's been good enough. For where he was in the minor leagues, for what kind of pitcher he is, he's been good enough. Like, yeah, they got obliterated the other night against the Yankees. And yeah, he had that start against the Twins where he gives up a grand slam to Max Kepler. But he really was like nails after that. The Twins didn't do anything. And the Tigers ended up coming back in that game. They lost, but they ended up tying it up. They lost, but he pitched well enough to keep him in it. He has not pitched bad. And Ronnie Garcia, he was a Rule 5 draft pick a couple years ago. And he's been asked to do something, make a couple of spot starts, and he's pitched well enough for the Tigers to win a couple of games. And that's all you can ask. So for people to sit here and talk about fire Avila, he hasn't been doing a good job because the offense hasn't been good, it goes both ways. The team has different facets. He's took a team that historically in the last 15 years has never had a bullpen. The Tigers have like a top 5 bullpen in the entire game of baseball. They're literally top 5 in almost every run prevention stat between their rotation and their bullpen combined. They have been that lights out. They have taken arms like Will Vest. He was terrible. all of a sudden good. Jacob Barnes, okay, fine. He's probably been like one of the iffy arms, but he's had flashes. Like Joe Jimenez this year, all of a sudden throws strikes and he has a wipeout slider again. They got him back to that point. Andrew Chafin, amazingly good signing. Like he's been great. Back to that, been so good. Michael Fulmer, he has an under 3 ERA. Came out today, struck out Aaron Judge, best hitter in baseball right now on 3 pitches. Giovanni Soto is finally starting to have command again. But he's yet to blow a save. He's been damn good. He has issues with walks and he hits batters. It is what it is. But he throws 101 with a wipeout slider. And then you got a rotation that's 4/5 hurt, and they're still top 5 in run prevention. So I don't understand how people say how bad of a GM this guy is and how he needs to be fired. Yet he's been able to have this team be so good pitching-wise, and run prevention, able to keep the Tigers have lost so many games by 3 or less runs, to keep them in position to even be in a spot to win these games. Yet he's a bad general manager. He's built a bullpen. He's built a rotation. He's built minor league depth. You've seen what these young pitchers can do when they're asked to step into spots when they were double-A ball pitchers. And then you have a team that basically, if you can get past the 7th inning with a lead, it's over. But no, he's not a good GM. He can't build a team. He took a team that was terrible defensively. They couldn't field whatsoever during the Garden High era. And really last year, they were pretty bad too. Middle of the infield defense has been so much better. They're one of the best teams in the major leagues at turn on the double play. Spencer Torkelson has been so good at first. And then you got like the defense out there in the outfield and center with like Daz and Hill. They've been way better defensively up the middle. Way better. And that's where the most important part of your team. But he gets no credit for any of that. He just gets credited. Everyone says he needs to be fired and he's not a good general manager, but he gets no credit whatsoever for being able to overcome all these injuries with depth they have drafted, they have scouted, they have acquired. But he's not a good general manager because the team can't hit. I don't know. I don't get it. Everyone wants to talk about fire Avila, fire AJ Hinch. They're the issues. It's their decision making. It's the direction of the team. Which is why they're 12 games under 500, because they can't put good everyday players out there. But yet they can have one of the most injury-riddled teams in the big leagues, yet still assemble a really good pitching staff out of rookie pitchers that are 4/5 rookie pitchers, a really good bullpen all of a sudden, be in on most of the games they played, but they don't get credit for that aspect because they can't hit. And it's not Hinch or Avila's fault. Like, they went out and they acquired players to try to be a good team this year. Meadows has vertigo. He can't see a ball. He's got double vision. What are you supposed to do about that? Baez can't lay off sliders. Like, I have no idea why any team throws him fastballs. He can't hit sliders. It's a joke at this point. I don't know what more they have to do. Like, I'm sure they're telling him, look, dude, here's your ABs, it's slider, and he's probably hitting off the slider machine. He can't fucking lay off it. He's terrible. He can't. And I said this earlier this year. I wasn't hyped about having him, but at least he's been really good defensively. That's another good player they acquired. And they thought Spencer Torkelson was going to give him a little bit more so far. And he hasn't, because he's been so consistent. But they made attempts to be better this year. They made attempts to be competitive. They made attempts to at least be, like, I thought at this point they'd at least be 3 games under 500, maybe 4 games under 500, and be a little bit closer, to second place in the division. Obviously, none of us thought they were going to do what they did last year, almost mirror image of it, and be, 13 games under 500 so quick, start 8-24, 9-24 again. No one saw that coming, not with, the Meadows trade, and you knew you were getting Greene back, and Torkelson was going to come up and contribute this year. No one saw that. But the bright side is, and all of this, is that getting so decimated by injuries and being so hurt, they're going to finally start being on the other side of that coin. Because Greene's playing, Greene's back, and I think that he is the exact kind of hitter that this team needs. They need someone who can hit at the top of the lineup, who's a spark plug kind of guy, who's got some speed, who can do it on both sides of the ball. He plays a really good center field. He's a really good hitter. And I know so far this year, we've seen our rookie guys not hit, like our particular hitters. Like even Joey Wentz finally came up and had his second start and he got hurt. But he had like 54 pitches in the fifth inning against the Guardians. And he was cruising, and he was going to get his first major league win. And I was so sad for him because when he came out, like when I was talking about in my last video, like he was like missing with his curveball up, and he couldn't spot his fastball. Really, the only pitch he didn't have his last start was his changeup. He kept missing with his changeup, glove side away. But man, he was burying his curveball, his fastball. Man, it was great. And, just another one of their great rookie pitchers starts. Filling in. But so far, our rookie hitters haven't, been what we thought they will were going to be. Like, Clemens doesn't have a hit yet, and Torkelson's been inconsistent and whatnot like that. But I don't think it's going to be like that for Greene. Is he going to hit 400 with 100 home runs? No. But I think he's going to come up and be a 260, 270 guy by year's end and crack out 8 to 11 home runs and steal you 10 bases and play a good center field. I am that confident in Riley Greene. He has got that skill set, which I have talked about so many times in my videos. He has got that skill set, and he has got that makeup that he is the kind of hitter they need. They need Riley Greene so bad to be Riley Greene in the big leagues because he is a spark plug kind of guy. He is a guy that can draw walks. He is a guy that can put the ball in the seats. He is a guy that can do it on both sides of the ball. He is a really good hitter. He's a really good player. He's a spark plug kind of guy, and that's what they need in this lineup. And I think and I hope by this time next week, I'm going to be making my video talking about Riley Greene's going to be making his major league debut sometime middle of next week. I really, 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 really hope. And Austin Meadows is coming back. And luckily, the Tigers are on the backside of all their players being injured because they're getting a bunch of guys back. Like I was saying, Cisneros throwing bullpens, and Casey Mize is going to be getting ready for a rehab assignment, I bet you probably by the end of this week. And Greene's playing in games, and Meadows is playing in games and whatnot. And honestly, too, I think having Greene in the big leagues with Spencer Torkelson will probably help Spencer Torkelson out and maybe take some pressure off of him. Because, Greene and Torkelson are really good friends. They've been friends for a while. They played in Toledo together. They played at AA together. They were in spring training together, staying at a house together. And honestly, I think with Greene in the big leagues, it'll take some pressure off of Torkelson because Torkelson and Greene are supposed to be the guys. They're supposed to be our dudes for the next 6 years. They're supposed to be the next wave of Tigers hitters. They're supposed to be the next guys. And I think with one of his really good friends up there, not that like these dudes have been mean to him or nothing, like Miggy's been like Torkelson's biggest fan, but I think it'll take a lot of pressure off him because the other guy's there, his friend's there, another one of these touted rookies is there to take a little bit of pressure off of him, and it might help him hit better. But I'm going to end this video now because it doesn't need to be any longer than this. It won 7-9 on the homestand. Go get obliterated in New York. They're getting healthier. Avila gets no credit for assembling stud pitching rotations with rookies and getting a bullpen that's great that Hinch manages most of the time flawlessly. They get no credit for that, but everyone wants them fired because they can't hit, even though they did everything else that's good about them they get no credit for. But they can't hit, so they're terrible. I don't get it. That's all I got for you guys today. Go Tigers.